Victoria, I have a question about the beginnings of the revolution or umbrella movement. We know that there were a number of campaigns and actions that preceded it, and some of them were successful, some of them not, or less successful. So I wanted to ask you about if you could elaborate more on the roots or the beginnings of the umbrella movement, particularly looking at the civic actions and activists and campaigns that preceded it.
Great. A lot of my students, and actually I think a lot of friends, thought that, you know, a movement really starts when CNN anchor descends on a particular city. And this is not the case, because by the time the CNN anchor descends on a particular location, a particular protest has already pretty much grown to a very large scale. So also the protesters in Hong Kong are saying that this is not really an umbrella revolution as if it were new, but rather they like the term umbrella, but they insist that this is an umbrella movement. It's a movement 30 years in the making. It really started when the British and the Chinese started to negotiate over the future of Hong Kong in the 1980s. And after the Sino-British Joint Declaration was signed in 1984, then the intellectuals in Hong Kong, social workers, people who really care about the future of Hong Kong began to get mobilized. And many people would date the beginning of the Hong Kong's democracy movements to this, what we call a Kaohsiung summit of all the like minds in 1986. And then Tiananmen coalesced all these different pro-democracy forces together. And so the first Democratic Party was formed soon. And then it's contested in the first ever directly elected seats to the electoral. There were only like about 12 seats, so out of 60. So it wasn't like the full democracy, and this is the issue. We're talking about this gradual opening up of Hong Kong's democratic environment over time. And then the next wave was in 2003, when people mobilized to fight against Beijing's wishes to impose the national security bill on Hong Kong. 500,000 people were on the street, and the government was forced to shelve it. And then the next wave, it was in 2012, when students this time were mobilized to, again, organize, because this time Beijing was looking at Hong Kong people and said, oh, they're not patriotic. They don't know enough about China's condition. So we have to really give them better patriotic education, so they begin to love the motherland. And the students were really upset. And now Joshua Wang, he's 17 years old now. He started mobilizing 2 years ago. He was only 15. And that's at the same time, because 100,000 people show up at the central government offices, where all the protests this time really started. With that, again, the government said we're going to shelve the national security, the patriotic education policy. So there were these two previous cases of success.
So that was a scholarism movement, right?
Yeah, scholarism, and enough people power, and therefore, the government shelved something that they really wanted to do. And then Occupy Central is really different. So last year, early in last year, Benny Tai said that, well, because we really have to start talking about how we're going to really achieve universal franchise in 2017. So he organized Occupy Central. Now this movement is different in a way, and this is why you guys were talking about whether or not Hong Kong people have the rights to protest. In a way, Hong Kong has always had the rights to protest. What is different is that this time they said we're not going to just have a massive gathering of people for an afternoon or for an evening and then go home and just wait and see what the government is going to do. We're going to actually have a disruptive action. In a way, the first ever for Hong Kong. Now, what happened was that they meant this to be a threat. Now, make sure that you genuinely consult with Hong Kong people how to arrange the electoral process in order to really achieve genuine universal franchise. Otherwise, it's meant to be a threat that we're going to occupy Central. The business district is like occupying Wall Street of New York. And because they issued this warning way in advance, so this time the dynamics change. Beijing had a lot of time to prepare and then to target all the Occupy Central leaders. And also then finally, as Mike is going to also talk about, it came down with this decision. That basically you can only choose. You can have one person, one vote, but you can only really choose among the 2 or 3 candidates that we really like. And then the students became really agitated, and so they started the school boycott in the week September 22nd. And then at the end of the week, then actually Occupy Central, they had announced to start Occupy Central on October 1st, but they were forced to start early. And it is also striking that Occupy Central, they announced that they were going to start a disruptive action on a national holiday, so that when the banks and all the companies in Central were closed, to minimize disruption. So they were actually trying to be so moderate, but still in a way that they really had the whole thing forced in their hands.
Great, fascinating. Thank you.